Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Coach Etch Tips. I'm really excited about the guest I have in the interview today. His name is Omar McMillan, Coach O, as many people call him in his community. I've known Omar for a number of years, and he recently was recognized as one of the top teachers in the state of Minnesota and a finalist for the Teacher of the Year in the state of Minnesota. Omar has taught elementary school, he's taught and coached in college, and is currently the head basketball coach at Ridgefield High School in Ridgefield, Minnesota. And he's one of those very unique people that comes from humble beginnings, but the impression that he makes and the connections he makes with the students and the athletes he works with are tremendous. One of the biggest hearted people you could ever meet. And I don't just say this from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. My son had a chance to play basketball for him, was captain of his basketball team. And I know that Omar is one of those special people in Jared's life. And with that, I'm excited to let you hear from Coach Omar McMillan today. Stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy this show. All right, great. Okay, folks, I'd like to welcome to this episode of Coach Etch Tips here with Dreams, Passion, and Purpose, and team up with Coach E. Today, I'm very honored to have who I like to consider a good friend and a professional colleague that I've known for a number of years now. But as a professional, he's not one to build himself up too much, but this past year, he's a finalist for Teacher of the Year in the state of Minnesota. And he's touched numerous lives all around the state. And he's going to talk to us a little bit today about building relationships and how he's handled the ups and downs of his career and working with his colleagues and his peers and also with the students and athletes and their parents. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Coach O, or Coach Omar McMillan. Coach O, thanks a lot for being on the show today. Sure appreciate it.
Man, it's an honor and a pleasure. I'm glad for the invite.
Well, I'd like you to just take a few minutes here kind of to talk about a little bit of your past and your history and your kind of your growing up, what made, education important to you, made you want to become a teacher and a coach, and kind of how you end up here in Ridgefield here today. If you share that with us, we sure appreciate it.
Well, I'm a military baby. I was born in Coronado, San Diego. Then I think I want to live the first 2 or 3 years with my grandmother in Gary, Indiana, before my mom married her high school sweetheart, and we moved to Milwaukee. So basically, the majority of my life growing up was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Inner city, we call them the projects growing up. But at the same time, you hear about the projects and you hear some of those negative notations about it. But I think the projects really taught me how to deal with the struggle, deal with adversity, deal with so many different cultures that I grew up around. I wish I could do, a documentary of what the project's life was like. But I grew up around there. I had a stepdad that made us do just about everything. He was a military guy too, so we played badminton, we played tennis, we played kickball, we played baseball. You couldn't just focus on one sport. He wanted you to be so well-rounded. So it was some, Saturday mornings I'm waking up watching PGA bowling and all these different bowling with the champs and all that, all these different things. And I just thought I was going to grow up to be a bowler at that time. But the overall family aspect of it, mom, stepdad, I got 2 younger sisters. I got a deceased brother that's younger than me. I'm the oldest child. We kind of grew up in this, this 3-bedroom home, so to speak, and we were very close-knit, eating at the table. Sometimes we had neighbors over who didn't have a lot of food to eat, and vice versa, traveling to the church at one point to eat meals and stuff like that. So I grew up around, so to speak, a lot of stuff that maybe a teenage kid probably shouldn't see, drugs, gangs, violence, prostitution, pimping, all that type of things are kind of around. But the good thing about it is I had a mom and stepdad who they had expectations, and my dad was kind of, like I said, the military guy where your bed had to be made up a certain type of way. When you wash the dishes, you wash the dishes. I mean, that meant everything in the kitchen, you know, the stove, the inside of the stove, mopping the floor, and it's not a drop of water that should be in that sink. You know, that was type of ship that he ran. But then you also had my mom, who was the homemaker person who, because I complained about how she washed my shirt one time when I was 9 years old, that was the end of her washing my clothes. So she spent the whole Sunday teaching me how to wash clothes and iron clothes and, you know, take care of your clothes and how to make them look neat. And I mean, so she was that type of person. It was, and they both were no nonsense about school and school, our faith, and how we treat people. And those things are kind of a lot of things that kind of went on along with me and the person that I am, as far as how I am with people. I am a huge people person. I like to be around people. You know, most of my vacation ideals when I talk to the family are places like New York and Texas and Chicago and all the people, I mean, all the places where you have a lot of people where I can observe the culture, observe the style, listen to the lingo and all that. I mean, I get engulfed with learning and observing other people and how they act and how they react and, you know, different things like that. But also, you know, my journey, you know, from the inner city to small town Mankato for my first 2 years of college was, I think, quite the culture shock for everybody, myself and a lot of my my college, you know, college people, college friends that I had. You know, you got there, and I want to say that first year, it was a total on campus of 8 African American people. And, you know, at that time, here's another part that I'm glad that, you know, based on my upbringing and growing up in the project, is that, you know, so it's 7 guys and 1 African American girl. So you learn not to be very picky at that time because, you know, you don't want, we were 7 guys competing for 1 girl. I was brought up that, you know, my stepdad used to say, didn't matter what the color, you know, as long as she had a good heart and looked good to you. So, you know, so I got along, I think, pretty well for the most part. The first year was kind of tough because I was homesick. But also all I had was really basketball, to say the least. But I had my college coach who coached Art Westfall, who is still my mentor to this day. We talk all the time. You know, anytime I say, you know, I'm having a tough time in the classroom, on the court, anything, we sit there and we talk for hours. But he was the one that introduced me to education. I had no plans whatsoever to be a teacher. I actually went to school to be a pediatrician. I had a love, a passion for medicine. I was very, very good at science, very good, you know, with kids, so to speak. And so we were at the Salvation Army doing a community service event. And we're there and probably about 20, 30 kids come running in there to see our basketball team. And I want to say, humbly so, about 25 of them gravitated towards me, and we're playing tag, and the rest of my teammates are just sitting there like, look at this big kid. So, you know, we on the floor rolling around, and finally my coach is like, Omar, come here. And everybody like, ooh, what'd he do now? So, you know, because again, I guess I can't admit I was a class clown to a little extent. So I go over there and he pulled me to the side and I'm like, what, coach, what'd I do? He said, you ever thought about being a teacher? I said, coach, I ain't being no teacher, man. Ain't no money in there. I can't be living my life being poor all the time. I did that already in the first part of my life. The teachers don't make no money. He said, Omar, I think you really should think about it. And I did, and after graduating from Bethany Luther College, I went to college at St. Scholastica and made my major education, elementary education. And the teachers that I had outside of Coach Westfall that I had were just phenomenal. And, you know, the two that I remember the most that impacted me, and I think really kind of pushed me to be the teacher that I am today, is Stephen Finster and Dr. Diane Kessler. Diane Kessler was my French teacher, and Finkston was my advisor. And Finkston would, he just built that relationship with me. He would just gravitate toward it. He would come into class, and when I was done with my work, and call me in there and show me his March Madness picks. But at the same time, I wasn't making the connection of him building relationships with me, because he would slip in different conversations to find stuff about me. But, you know, I was so intrigued by him because he would win the bracket every year, but he would win it by flipping a coin. He would flip a coin and pick his teams. And I'm like, how are you winning all these games? And he's like, you know, so, but at the same time, I was missing the fact that we were having these in-depth conversations, but at the same time, you know, talking about college basketball. And he would come to the games, you know, any recital or anything that I participate, he would come there and he would find more about me and this and that and that, invite me to his house. And I'm like, you know, finally I said, why are you doing this? Why are you so friendly? And he said, you special. You special. He's like, I think you're going to be a pretty good teacher. He said, I just watched, you know, the demeanor and how you went with kids. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. And then it was Dr. Kessler. She was my French teacher. And the thing that made her special is that she had did something outside of Coach Westfall that no other professor did in the 4 years that I was in college. She called me out. And she called me out because I had, and the crazy thing is I can't speak a word of French today, but I had taken like 8 years. Yeah, I had taken like 8 years of French, and I was in like advanced French, this and that. And I was pretty decent at that time. But I got to a point where there was no more French courses to take. So she made an independent study for me. So this independent study required me to watch soap operas, right? She would give you this VH tape and I would have to watch soap operas. Now these people were talking so fast on their edge. I mean, I don't know what the heck they talking about. So, but I had a pretty good sense of decoding stuff and thinking where it is. But you know, in a foreign language, if you misinterpret one word, then the whole sentence is gone. So anyway, I had to meet with her twice a week. So the first day I met with her, we're watching this soap opera together. And she is darn near on the floor, rolling around laughing at whatever's happening in the soap opera. And I'm there with this stone face because I don't have a clue. Finally, she gets up from the chair that she was in, turns off the soap opera and look at me and say, you don't know what's going on, do you? And I said, no. And she went to her desk and she wrote something on a piece of paper and she handed it to me. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh. She was gonna drop me from the course. I said, no, I need this, She was like, you don't take this serious enough. And I said, no, I'm gonna take it serious. And she was like, no, you don't take it serious. She's like, Omar, I've been watching you for the 2 years that you're here. And sometimes things just happen so naturally for you and no one ever calls out your mistakes. She said, yesterday in the game, I watched you play against UMD. Now, granted, you had 20 rebounds, but there was 3 missed box outs that you had, that you just kind of sat there and settled for that person to get the rebound. And she said, but at the end of the game, I bet everybody praised you because you had 20 rebounds, but they didn't focus on the fact that you should have had 24. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at her and she was like, and I watched you against UW Eau Claire. You had 20 points, but you missed 7 free throws. And you're one of the best free throw shooters on the league. You're not focused. And that stuff carries over to my classroom. That stuff carries over to your life. And she is the one that I live by today when she says, what you do becomes a habit. So if you train yourself to have that habit now, it will forever be with you and kind of in life. So those are some of the things that, that kind of rooted me to kind of be the person that I kind of am now in the classroom, being observant, understanding people's struggles, building relationships with people. And also, sometimes you have to pull the potential out of somebody because they might just think they're doing okay and settling for the 20 rebounds when you could have got 24. And she would sit right there in that corner and keep stats, kind of like you used to see Gene and Jim Noonan do in the stands where they're keeping stats. She used to come and keep my stats for every game. And that would be our icebreaker when I walked into French. And she would say, I said, man, she was the modern day Huddle. She would break down my game better sometimes than my 4-year coach, telling me on things that I should be doing and doing better, and she'll kind of compare it to life. So that's kind of, a little bit of the background of how I got to be a teacher.
So when you take those lessons as an educator, for that way you've been teaching and coaching 20 plus years now?
27. This is 27 years now.
27. And
this is the 21st year of teaching.
So you're taking those resources and literally the people that set the examples for you as you were coming up to be a teacher. And as you grow, and I've had a chance, I've been around you for about the last 15 years or so. When my son first started playing basketball for you, probably back in 8th grade, when I first got to kind of get to know you fairly well. And you're not the same Omar you were 15 years ago. You've grown continually. I've seen you grow. I mean, even though, full disclosure here, folks, this guy's probably, maybe outside of me, maybe sometimes more than me, the most influential guy in my son's life. He made a huge difference in his life as a coach and a person.
Sure.
Still today, you and him will connect over different things at times and stuff, and he knows that one of those tough times, if he needs to talk to somebody, you're one that he can probably connect with. But where have you turned to maybe grow? Because I know you've grown a lot, and just how the different things I see you do with your students and your kids. Where do you get the information to grow your relationship building skill? Or is it just, you have to go out and seek it? Is the school training you to do it? Or where do you go find that? Or just think on your own?
Like I said, it's going back to your roots.
Yeah.
One thing people will tell you about that is I am a diehard. And what I mean by that is I am diehard Milwaukee. I am diehard Green Bay Packers. I don't like get into a lot of fist fights or nothing like that over it, but I am diehard. And what I mean by that, my passions, I am diehard about my passions. So I became diehard Richfield. I became diehard passionate about teaching, diehard passionate about coaching, diehard passionate about the people that's around me. One thing about me is I give, and I hate to say this, you're 100%, because it's hard to give you 100% when you get stretched so much. But I try to give my all to everybody that I'm involved in. One of my biggest things, and one of the things that we talk about in the basketball program, is that we don't feel like we have done a good job unless our players come back. And we kind of rate ourselves on that. Now, it's easy in the world of sports to rate how many championships you win and how many city conference games you win and how many state championships you win. But I'm no dummy. That's rare. It's a blessing to get the state every year. It's a blessing to win a sectional championship. It's a blessing to win a conference championship. It's a blessing to win a game. But at the same time, when you deal with so many different people that come across your classroom, so many people that come across your gym, I feel more touched and honored. And I mean, this is no way trying to gas you up at all. But every time I see Jared, it's just like a chill that runs down my. Every time I see a former player, every time I see a former student, I mean, I just like get overwhelmed, excited just to see them. And there's nothing phony or fake about me. I will show my emotions right off the gate. I mean, I always checking to see how my former players are doing, what they up to, and the things that they doing, and the impact of it. If they say, "Oh man, I'm getting married," like it's almost tears in my eyes to remember. And I used to collect homework for this. I used to rebound for this kid. I used to, it's a reward in itself. I would have been flattered to win the Teacher of the Year, but that wasn't necessarily my goal. I joke with all my families that I'm going to give you a kid a Teacher of the Year performance every year. I winning the Coach of the Year last year, that wasn't my goal because at the end of the day, I have a fantastic coaching staff that, literally, I could have broke up that trophy and gave every piece of them because, sometimes they work harder than me. And to be honest with you, I don't even think last year was my best year coaching. Now, some people might laugh at that and say, man, y'all was 23-6. No, I probably think my best year of coaching was when we were 3-23, working my butt off and, finding a way to, after losing the game, still go home and try to way to be cheerful and turn off that switch and go into class that next day, even though you're tired watching film all night, and flip it into something else. So it's just I think it just has to do, the maturity had to do with me being falling more and more in love with the passions that I have in my life and trying to mature to be the best person I can to accomplish what I needed to accomplish with each one of those areas.
But one thing you kind of touched on their passion, and on my website when I talk to people about dreams, passion, purpose, and you've probably seen my hashtag. I put that up a lot because I think our dreams that we have is really what kind of makes us become passionate, and that gives us our purpose and drives us every day. And but you just touched on kind of that day when you're tired and you're worn out, and as much as you put into coaching, I know you probably put in that much or more into the classroom, because I've talked to kids and parents of kids that you've had in your classroom working with adolescent kids. And in today's world, teaching's so tough. All the demands put on teachers of testing and now dealing with COVID. And how do you find that to bring that 110% on those rough days and you're tired to bring that passion? Because I think anybody hears you talk here the last 15, 20 minutes, they can see it there. But I know there's days when it's hard. And how do you get up in the morning and bring that best version of yourself that maybe somebody was a young teacher? Because that first 3 to 5 years is so hard teaching. And people, I think, sometimes wonder, did I really make the right choice? And how can I keep doing this? And you've been through it. You know all the ups and downs, 27 years. I mean, how do you still today bring that passion to each day to give your best effort, even on the days you feel like crud?
Well, it's a balance. Two things: the balance part of it, and also, our basketball mantra, "We over me." And everything that I involved in, I try to have it be balanced throughout my whole life. Like, for example, the whole coaching piece, I had family members that played basketball. So it allowed me to have them be a part of that and trying to figure out ways to make sure that I'm around as much as I need to be around. Some of the strategies that I use in the classroom, I use on the basketball court, and vice versa. When I used to coach college basketball down at MCTC, the head coach down there used to say, "How's your class?" Because every year I used to say, "Man, this team just like my class." So she wanted to know, was my class a good class or was it going to be a bad class? So trying to find that balance in there. But this is going to sound silly because I don't try to ever come off as being a selfish person, but I'm selfish about doing all I can for others. And sometimes I think as I get older, I have to be reminded about the self-care piece of it.
Yep.
The self-care piece of take care of yourself. And I think 2 years ago, I told my players, we were talking about we over me. And then I stopped and I said, but it can't be a we over me if you can't take care of me to be able to take care of the we part of it. So I think the biggest part of it, I don't like being angry. I don't like being mad. You know, I don't like yelling, you know, unless it's excitement. So a lot of that kind of negativity piece of my life, I think it allows me to make it through a lot of stuff. You know, I don't like losing, but at the same time, because I don't like losing, uh, you know, I kind of process things a little bit differently, understand them a little bit differently. Where some people are like, man, why is he able to just, you know, just come in the gym and like nothing never happened? And it's not that I'm coming to the gym like nothing ever happened. I don't want to be stuck on that. I don't want to be stuck on the fact that we lost that game. We move on. You know, we figure out how to do it at a different time or different way. But I think the biggest piece is the balance and the caring for others. And that's kind of what I thrive for. So that kind of helps me mature and deal with some of the things that I may deal with because you know, over the course of years, I don't knock on wood. I don't have as many parent problems. I don't have either way, teachers or I mean teaching or on the court, you know, because I open myself up, you know, and a lot of things is, and my wife doesn't always like it. She tells me that people have too much access to me. You know, they can text me in the middle of the night, man, my kid is still up doing this math homework, and I'll get up out the bed and go help the kid with the math homework or whatever the case may be. But yeah, it's just that balance, having that balance.
I think you touched on some of the communications, and it's one of the things that when I train about, I think communications sometimes along with, I think we all know that probably the biggest factor in a student's success in the classroom is the relationship they have with the teacher. But then how you communicate with that student or athlete and the people around them. And I think as you touched on that, you say you don't have much problems with that because now that student knows that you're involved in their life because you care. And you're able to communicate with them and the others that are important in their life too. And I think that's becomes a challenging thing in today's to reach out and get connected to not just the kid in the classroom and what they're doing as a student, but that student as a person and a child, a son, a daughter, you know, and with their mother. And so many kids have such extended families nowadays. And is there anything you kind of, with your students in the classroom, do intentionally to make that connection? Because your athletes and the families all get brought in for your fundraisers, for your games every weekend. But in the classroom, that becomes a hard thing. And as talk about some intentional things you do to communicate, if you could share some of that, that would be great.
Well, it's bigger than the classroom. And I try to my best to build a relationship with every kid in the classroom. And that doesn't now, and a lot of times I just thought about this because I spoke about this a couple of months ago, and they said, man, you know, you build all these positive relationships. And I want to correct them and say, not every relationship is about being happy or being, you know, everything's jolly. You know, I might have to stretch for a kid. I might have to go out of my comfort zone to be able to get in touch with this kid or, you know, I mean, just for a perfect example is, you know, I got one kid that just refuses to turn his camera on and it drives me crazy. So, you know, I just let him, you know, side chat me to let me know that he's there and it works for him. And today he had one of his best days because you have to be willing to adjust and let these kids know that you're more than just their teacher. You know, I go to hockey games, I go to baseball games, you know, I go to basketball games, and I've been to 2.5 hour church recitals and all this, you know, you sit, I mean, you get invited to dinner, you get you play, you know, you play at recess with them. So they don't have to always think that, oh, he just give me a test. And I'm not a very good reader, so he judged me based on my reading here. I'm not good in math, so he judged me based on my math. And no, I'm not judging you all. I see the big picture. So I'm willing to adjust myself to build that relationship with not only you, but your family. So at the end of the day, I think we want a successful project. And sometimes you have to be able to do the extra and adjust yourself, bend not break, as they say, in order to see these kids have a successful experience with you and you have a successful experience with them.
Now, is there, in today's world, whether it's in, we could really hear about it in sports because they're on TV all the time, but I think successful teachers that I've seen, like yourself, create their own culture within their classroom with their kids, and they kind of, especially when you're in the age group that you're teaching adolescents, you have the same group basically all day long. You're not in high school and having 5 different classes a day, different groups of kids. But is there anything you do to kind of create that culture of caring and loving and communicating and high expectations within your classroom to students, to kind of when you set the tone at the beginning of the year so that you kind of know where you're at and where you're going to be going?
You know, the thing about, yeah, I'm going to say yes, in the sense that I think every teacher builds community in their classroom. The thing about it is how that you build community in your classroom, because you can walk into your classroom and not do a single thing and you build community. You build some type of culture in there. Now, it might not be a good community, it might not be a good culture, but you have built something in there. And the one thing that, again, I think that I do is I'm not afraid to defy the odds, so to speak. People know if they come in my classroom, I'm not your normal teacher. You know, I'm singing, I'm doing all these crazy things and all, whatever the case may be, to draw the attention of my kids. So the community piece basically is, like I said before, finding out who they are so that they appreciate coming to the community. So, you know, I think one year I had a large population of Somalian kids in my classroom. So we made it feel like home. You know, we ate Somalian food. We had cultural things up. You know, they taught me their language. I went to some of their picnics, all these different things to try to figure out how can I be the best for them? Because again, a community is about a collective group of people who come from different backgrounds coming together to kind of unify. And what are they going to unify around is kind of the goal that I seek every year. What are we going to unify around? Is it going to be your personal culture? Is it going to be your background? Is it going to be being a good math class, a good reading class? What are we going to center our community around? And also with that, you know, I stress that they have a voice in my classroom. They have a say in my classroom. And I have 3 rules, and I've been having these rules for the last 10 years. Rule number 1, you have the right to learn. Rule number 2, I have the right to teach. Rule number 3, don't mess up 1 and 2. So anything that you do that messes up 1 and 2 is affecting our community. So if you fight, if you argue, this and that, you're going to ruin our community. So I don't hit them with 10 rules, this and that, and it's funny that even to this day, you know, I asked some kids, I don't know if you remember Hunter Day.
Oh, yeah.
Hunter Day, we were at a football game and his dad came up to me, and this is probably almost 6 years after having Hunter, and he was at a football game. His dad was at a football game. And his dad came over to me and he says, we were sitting at the dinner table yesterday, and Hunter brought up a couple things that you said in class. And I'm sitting there looking like, where is this going? Because he doesn't have like a single smile or smirk on his face. So I'm like, oh Lord, what did I say? What did I do? He says, so after the meal, I pull out a cigarette and I light up the smoke. And Hunter looks at me and says, you know what? I'm just gonna tell you just like Mr. McMillan told me. And I looked at him, I said, oh, what did Mr. McMillan tell you? He says, when you're in New York City, because New York City was one of Mr. McMillan's favorite places. When you're in New York City and you're walking down the street and you fall into a hole, the first time is an accident. The second time, something wrong with you. So he said he looked over there at Hunter. He's like, what do you mean? He said, you stopped smoking 2 months ago. Now you back into that smoking again. Something wrong with you. And he says, Omar, I decided right there in that point that I wasn't going to smoke cigarettes no more. I said, oh. He said, so your words of wisdom when my kid was a 3rd grader is still affecting our household right now when he's a 10th grader. So I just wanted, and he patted me on the back and he walked away, and I'm like, oh, and Dez, my assistant coach, was standing there. He was like, dang, Omar, you over here. I ain't never seen you sweat like that. He said, I don't remember what I said, but I was nervous about what I might have said to him. But, just different things like that, building community and understanding like that, because they're lifelong lessons that we are obligated to give these kids.
Well, I think, just like you said there, you've been around long enough now that you can, maybe when you're a younger teacher, you didn't know the impact of those words you said. Like that day, you give the story about the hole in New York City. Little did you know, 6 years later with Hunter, that would change his dad's life for the better, be healthier. And I think sometimes young teachers, you can only experience life at the speed you experience it, but you can borrow stories from others and their experiences to help give you faith to get to that point in your life where you can get that return on it. And I think that's one of the great challenges we have in education today is that someday you got a household full of girls. I've got a son and a daughter. We're going to have grandkids. And I know that a lot of people aren't going into the teaching profession. And you've probably seen a few young ones come in and leave because it's just so tough and hard. And I just kind of, to wrap up here, I just, a few words of wisdom to somebody that's maybe a teacher that's coming on here, whether it's a guy or a gal, and just they're wondering, should they keep on going and keep the faith, and what's something, like I said, we talked to, gives you the passion every day, and you shared some great heartwarming stories, but last few words of wisdom you could give to one of those teachers wondering, am I doing the right thing? Should I stay here?
Well, I guess that circles back around to the beginning. Number one, I think the success of these young teachers have to do with their passion. What is your passion in your heart that you want to accomplish as being a teacher? Why are you doing it, so to speak? The second thing I would say to them is to get a Coach Westfall, get them a Dr. Kessler, and get them a Steve Fingston, somebody that's going to call them out for what they're doing, but at the same time, pat them on their back for their success. And sometimes I think what ends up happening with teaching is that we're so busy that we miss out on some of the newer teachers a lot of times, and understanding that, they basically giving a life preserver and you out in the ocean, and we gotta make the difference in a lot of kids' lives, okay? And I think the third thing I would say that they need is what we're having today. We're having that type of dialogue on how teaching and a friendship has affected our lives and our kids' lives in order to have a lot of success stories in the end. So the biggest thing I probably would say to these younger teachers is, again, pay close attention to your passion. Get people around you that's going to encourage your passion, so that one day you can sit down and have this dialogue with one of your parents or one of your former students and say, we did well. We did well together, and look what turned out because of it. So.
All right, man. I tell you what, I appreciate all you do for the kids in our community here. And I have different people from all over the country coming on this show, but you're right here at home, and you're one that makes a lot of people proud to be a Spartan. Spartan proud, feel proud, right, man?
I appreciate it. That's right. Go Spartans.
What was it? We before me?
We over me.
We over me. I love that. And
yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming on today, Coach. For those of you that are watching here, if you want to hang on afterwards here a little bit, I'm going to go over some of the key points that he talked about today, just to share with you and review and reflect on those and take you on down the road to more success and better relationships. So thanks for tuning in today. Hi, I hope you enjoyed that discussion with Coach O, as many people call him here around my hometown. Omar has touched so many people, and I just wanted to follow up on a few key points here that he shared today. And he kind of opened up talking about the teacher he had in college that challenged him and kind of called him out. And it's kind of why he learned as a teacher, is that what you do becomes habit. So if you get in the habits now, they will stay with you the rest of your life. That's kind of why he tries to be observant in the classroom of his students, their struggles, and he works on building those things, strong relationships to help them through them struggles, to help teach them and show them from proper habits to succeed and achieve. And he tries to encourage them to get those habits at a young age that will help get them successful in older life. And he's not going to just settle for okay, but to push them to become more than just okay. One thing he talked about also is that he is diehard at his passions, diehard, whether it's about his teaching and his students, about his coaching and his athletes, about his community. He is all in. I can guarantee you from knowing him personally, that's one thing about him. He is all in. And what gets him so excited and really kind of gives him that sense of fulfillment is that when his former students and former athletes come back, he loves that because that's when he's had the chance to kind of see the end product, the things he worked on with them, to see where they're going in life, and to get that thank you from them in return. And he's so passionate. Anybody that has had him as a teacher or been an athlete for him, they really see that passion in him every day. As he said, he's not a very person to want to build himself up. He's a humble person. But even though, his goal wasn't to become Teacher of the Year in Minnesota, even though he's nominated one of the 5 finalists, but what he does tell his students and his parents is that he strives to give them a Teacher of the Year award every year. He wants to go for that. So he brings his best every single day. One of the big mantras that he's had with his students and with his athletes is we over me. And that he wants to teach people to be unselfish, to always be there, part of the group, the team, working with each other. On the other hand, also, as himself, he says one of his problems is he's not a selfish person at all, because when it comes to probably the only thing he can do that's selfish is when it comes to doing all he can for others. But he has to still remember to do that self-care part about himself, because sometimes he can end up personally paying the price because he just does too much and he forgets to take care of himself. He strives really hard to build relationships with every kid in the classroom. He wants to make them feel accepted. He wants them to feel like their voice is heard. He wants them to stretch outside of their comfort zone and to do more. And he also wants to get to know them outside of the classroom. He wants to go, whether it's to a choir concert or a game that they do. He thinks that's really important to building relationships, because then the student knows that him as a teacher or a coach cares more about them than just them as that student or their athlete. And he does that in his classroom all the time. I thought one thing was kind of unique the one year when he had the Somali student in the classroom that really felt kind of out of it, didn't really fit in with the people, the cultures in the room. So in the classroom, he had them come in and create some Somali food. They wanted a picnic for Somali picnic. And it got the classroom to bring that sense of community together to really understand their classmate. It made that classmate feel better sitting in that classroom, feeling more a part of it. He says every classroom has their own culture and community, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's bad. So as a teacher, you have to constantly be planning about what type of culture you want in your classroom and how you want that to look like and where you want the strengths of that culture to be in, and then bring all the students together in it. And kind of wrapping up, I thought he had two really important things he talked about him. He's always had kind of simplified over the years. He has 3 rules. He says to students, you have the right to learn. He says, number 2, I have the right to teach. And don't mess up 1 and 2. That's rule number 3. Because anything you do to mess them up, like fight or argue, affects our community. And when he's building that sense of community, that culture in that classroom, he wants them to know that their behaviors can impact everybody in a negative way. And one of the things he's said in closing is to for teachers out there, some of you that are maybe younger or experienced teachers out there, is that, number 1, you want to find out your passion and your why. And I've heard that from a lot of people that I talk to, because that really helps get you through those tough days and getting in there all the time. Number 2, as he talked about early in his career, get a mentor, somebody that will call you out when you're not getting it done, but then also is going to be there to praise you for your successes. So I think as you go through the years, when you're younger, you kind of want to do it all on your own, but you realize it's nice to have that mentor, that person you can go to talk to. And then lastly, he thinks that just like we were having our discussion today, have a dialogue in your building with staff and members. Sometimes these young teachers in today's world teachers get left out hanging to dry out there. They're feeling on their own. But bring people in, share stories. Stories is such a big part, because as I've expressed before, you have your own personal experiences and that's all you know. So you don't know what you don't know, but you can also grow that experience level without living it by hearing stories from others and their experiences. So we're all out there together. So he wants us all to stand together. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed Omar's talk today. If you enjoyed what you heard, please subscribe to our channel, Coach Etch Tips, and go out and share this with others. Give us a thumbs up. And if there's anything we can do, feel free. There's contact information here at the end of the video, where I would love to have a chance to connect with you someday.